Hello, Firefang92 here once again for News of the Week. Setting it up a little differently this time. This is still my face. This is my computer. Okay, so this is going to be the sort of Touken Ranbu special. And I'm going to talk about all the sort of interesting, noteworthy cards, and then at the end, maybe, if I feel like we have time, I'll run down the set really quick, just talk about everything that I didn't consider interesting enough to pre-select quickly. Here's a hint: 10k, 12k, a special interceptor, yada yada yada. Okay, so gonna start right out with my cat, but also with Mikazuchi Munechika. He is the man, absolutely. One of the best cards in the clan right now. Counterblast 1, once per turn. Flip up any G unit. He gets 3k for each face-up G unit, then retires one of your opponent's front row for every 2 face-up, and if you have 2 or more face-up, he gets a credit. So, essentially terrific for making your push, terrific for getting cards out of your opponent's hand and off their field. So he is really definitely a great card. Very aggressive, but you've got plenty of defensive options in the deck already, so pairing that with this means that you can definitely be looking out for the clan. By the way, sorry I'm late. I tried to record this before, but I was like sick or something. Next up we got Otagine. Very interesting card. 8k grade 2. When he hits with the MVP ability, which I don't think I've talked about before, is you can only activate 1 MVP per turn. So you kind of want to be specific about which one you're choosing. But this one is definitely worth it if you can get the hit off. Because what he does is when he hits, you can counterblast 1, and then until the end of turn, your opponent can't call grade 0s from their hand. So if you can get this guy through, you're looking at a really good way to make a final turn push. Next up, Kashu Kiyomitsu. Forerunner, 5k, 0. When he boosts, if you don't have face-up cards in your damage zone, you can Soul Blast 1, unflip 1, this unit gets 3k, and when one of your attack hits, put it into the Soul and Draw card. So, essentially what that is a way to guarantee that you have at least 1 counterblast available in late game. Very interesting, because this clan counterblasts a lot. Well, it doesn't have anything that's like Counterblast 3 or anything, but it has a lot of 1 counterblast here, 1 counterblast there. Next up we have another interesting starter, Mutsunokami Yoshiyuki. At Shinken Hisatsu, if you don't have another unit in the same column as this, he gets plus 6k. So you can call him over to the left or the right, or use Kanesada to bounce him back to your hand, and then you essentially get a free guaranteed attack, which is really great, especially if you're running like stand triggers or something, which there actually is an interesting reason to use that we may go into if I have time. Yeah, interesting starter, so if you're willing to give up the starter spot. Next up we got Imano Tsurugi. Sort of like a Stride Father, but you don't have a proper break stride in Touken Ranbu yet. So instead of the search ability, it has put this unit into Soul, choose your grade 4 or greater Vanguard, give it 5k, and the MVP ability, Soul Blast 1, when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, you may pay the cost. If you do, unflip 2. And then you can ditch it, and it gets plus 2 when you're striding. The important part about that is it gives your Vanguard an MVP, and there are a couple of abilities that go off specifically if your Vanguard has MVP. And also unflips. They're nice because, again, you are counterblasting a lot of one here, one theirs. Next up, we got Shishio. MVP. Counterblast 1, Soul Blast... Oh, sorry, not MVP, Shinken Hasatsu. Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, choose a card from your hand and discard it. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, you may pay the cost. If you do, draw 2 cards. So, an on-attack Nemen. And this is one of those great defensive options I was talking about, especially if you're running like an Agui Samaru deck, because that makes him a 9, and a 9 is a perfectly reasonable attacker. And you get free draws. Well, costed draw, but you get a draw and a cycle for a Counterblast and a Soul Blast, and that's great. Next up, we have Tanobo Kiri. Interesting side boss. Shinken Hasatsu, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. When he's being attacked, you get plus 2k power. So it's kind of like a cross ride, but you don't have to set it up in any way. But in exchange, you only use it every now and again, which isn't that bad considering that you really only use your cross ride body some of the time anyway. Because oftentimes you'll either not need it or just be overguarding anyway or perfect guarding. So you're not always using cross ride body. But anyway, the interesting thing is his auto Vanguard. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, during that battle, your opponent can't call grade zeros. So he just has a free Silent Tom, and he is an 11k. And that's very good. So if you ride into him like early game, then especially if your opponent wants to be saving the perfect cards for your Mikazuchis, for your Hotaru Marus, this guy can definitely push some damage through. So definitely worth considering as a side boss. Next up, another interesting side boss is Shikiri Maru. Shinken Hasatsu, Counterblast 1. This unit gets 15k as a Vanguard. So, an astonishing attack, right? Well, the downside is he can't attack if you have front row standing rear guards. So, you sort of have to play him in a stand deck or not play him at all. Cat's got a hairball. So if you're running a stand deck, definitely an interesting thing to consider. Next up, we have Iwatushi. Iwatushi, what he does is Counterblast 1, G Persona, and he gets the Vermilion skill, that he attacks everything in the front row. It's solid plussing. Not much else to say about that. Just one Counterblast for Vermilion, also very good. Okay, next off we have Surumaru Kuninaga. Sorry, I'm bad with these names. So he's sort of like your pseudo Break Stride. Auto MVP. Soul Blast 1, when this unit attack hits a Vanguard, you may pay the cost. If you do, unflip 1, choose grade 3 from your drop zone, add it to your hand. So he helps you stride more often, which is good, especially if you're playing a Break Stride. During your turn, when your G unit strides, Soul Charge 1 and choose 2 of your units, and they get plus 3k. Nice little thing. Stack it on a column, up at a stage. Not really much to say, but maybe you can pick some columns. I mean, that's not the most amazing on-stride effect, but it's something. Anyway, next up we got Kogitsune Maru. He's kind of like your Agui Sumaru, but instead of for Shinken Hasatsus, he's for MVPs. And what I mean by that is he has the auto effect Counterblast 1 when your rearguard with MVP attacks a Vanguard. You may pay the cost. If you do, that unit gets plus 3k. So they are both sort of made to turn. If you're basing your deck off Shinken Hasatsu's, Agui Sumaru turns your rearguards into stable attackers. If you're basing it off MVPs, this guy can turn your rearguards into stable attackers. He also has the MVP skill to Soul Blast 1 when he hits a Vanguard. You may pay the cost. If you do, look at the top card of your deck, put it to the top or bottom, and then draw a card. So it's a slightly more consistent draw because you do get that scry in beforehand. But really, if you want to use him, I would use him for that secondary ability to make your attacks more reliable. Next up, we have a card that I actually really like, because it's both a Shinken and an MVP. So you can use it no matter what kind of deck you're planning to make. Shinken Hisatsu, Counterblast 1. Until the end of turn, this unit gets plus 2k, and MVP. When this unit hits a Vanguard, Nemen. So that's really great. Stable, consistent attacker for only one Counterblast with the defensive Nemen effect. So you really can't ask for a lot more than that. I am realizing that I forgot a couple of very important units. So we're definitely going to go back into the set. First off, we got Hataru, who we need to talk about. When his attack hits, flip up a Hataru, rest 5, restand him. But he gets drive -2. So essentially, a free restand that pluses. That's sort of spectacular, but he kind of has to hit, which is awkward, especially late game. So you can play him if you're feeling bold, because the advantage that you get out of him is very, very significant. The only thing that can kind of make him a little more reliable would be like playing stands so that you could maybe boost him, and your opponent would think, oh, he forgot the ability, or oh, he's just striding for the sake of the triple drive, and then you hit a stand up your back row, and, sorry about that, actually activate his ability. It's a little bit of a cheeky, luck-reliant trick, but if you want to try something like that, because I can tell you you're never going to get him to hit in a crit deck. Your opponent, well, because even if they, like 3 zeros, is already forcing that into 3 to pass, and you're not going to hit a 3 to pass. Okay, so a couple of things I didn't think were like important enough. Ichigo hit a furry, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, Shinken Hisatsu, he gets 4k for every Toshiro on the field. There are a couple of Toshiros in the clan. Kagetsu Sumomoji, that is your perfect. Shikodai Mitsusada, slip him into the soul to get 2 things 3k as a double R crit. Double R crits are really starting to annoy me. I mean, I see the use of that one, but it's annoying. Nekagetsune, MVP, when he hits, draw a card, call a thing to rear guard for a Soul Blast, I think. So you're kind of wasting the plus, but extra attack if you feel like you can maybe push something through with your stable attack boosters. Atsutoshiro, that's Quintet Wall. You've got a whole bunch of other starters. One of them slip into the soul of the discard and draw. One gives 2 Shinkens 3k. And one is a weird MVP support card. Yaman Bagiri Kunihiro, who's made to work with Yaman Bushi Kunihiro. And basically, the long and the short of that effect is you get to trade a grade 3 for another card on flip 2, and have swung for 21k, and you get those packs if you get. Kurikara is your 10k. There's a card up here that's 12k attacker. If you, I think it's Dotanuki Masakuni. Swings for 12k if you're at Shinken Hisatsu. Kind of interesting. Let's see. Nizumo Toshiro and Hanombe Toshiro are both 6ks that go up to 8k if you have the other one on the field. And I think Hanombe is a ditch to draw, and Nizumo is if he boosts Ichigo Hitafuri, he gets an extra 3. So it's its own little mini engine that if you're having trouble in deck building, you can sort of tack into your deck. But it's nothing impressive in and of itself. Next up, we have a whole bunch of triggers, but some of these actually have effects, which are cool. Yaigen Toshiro, I believe, it's either Yaigen Toshiro or Akita. No, not Akita Toshiro. Yeah, it's gotta be Yaigen Toshiro. Draw trigger if you have Medea Toshiro, who's the stand trigger on the field at Shinken Hasatsu, which is the important part. It gets plus 3k. And Medea is the same thing, but with Yaigen. And she's a stand trigger. They're all males, despite a lot of them looking very female. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of like a 7k boost. What does that matter? Not much. But the important part there is that they're both Shinken Hasatsus with triggers. So you can play them in a Guisumaru, and they are 10k triggers. So a no pass for a Guisumaru just went from 3 cards to 5 cards if they don't have a perfect. So, especially if you can like surprise your opponent with that, that'd be great, because you can just they go, okay, I'm 5 over, I'm 15 over him, so he's not going to be able to check past that. Oh, what's that? Draw trigger? Plus 10. Pretty great. The last card with an effect that's really important is Aizen Kunitoshi. Once per turn, if you have this unit in the back row, when your Vanguard attacks, stand him, and then if you have a grade 4 with MVP, so that's where that grade 1 that gives MVP comes in handy. There's also the starter, which supports MVPs, but he's just kind of okay. Anyway, so then if you're grade 4 or greater with MVP attacks, choose one of your other rear guards in the same column and stand it. Again, it's a stand trigger, so if you just want to play the traditional crit deck, it's probably not worth running. But first off, for Hataru Maru, he does allow you to attack, then stand the column so that you can still rest them with his effect, so it guarantees you getting in at least 2 attacks instead of having to... Well, it guarantees you getting in an extra attack, which is nice, because Hataru Maru rest 5, so... But with just like Mikazuchi, if you give him the effect with the grade 1, that's still an additional column, so that's pretty great. So, yeah, if you do want to play the traditional crit deck, I wouldn't bother with him. I wouldn't. Because it's not, like, amazing, and it's not convincing in and of itself. But if you are playing a stand deck, that's an excellent tool. So that was essentially all the Touken Ranbu stuff. Hopefully next week I'll be back to a more ordinary news of the week. So I guess until then, this has been Firefang92, signing out.